Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's, and today we're looking into a story that should have every internet user, every parent, and every freedom-loving individual sitting up and taking notice. The United Nations, once a beacon of peacekeeping and humanitarian aid, has set its sights on a new target: your online spaces, from gaming platforms to social media influencers. Let's start with the gaming world. So the UN has decided that after tackling so-called misinformation online, they're now coming for your Call of Duty sessions and Fortnite battles. They are doing this under the guise of detecting and preventing radicalisation. They are unlocking new ways to monitor and potentially censor online activities. The UN Counter-Terrorism Office and the UN Inter-Regional Crime and Justice Research Institutes are leading this charge. They're painting gaming platforms as dangerous breeding grounds for extremists. Now, it's a narrative we've seen before, isn't it? First, it was violent video games causing real-world violence. Now, apparently, your Discord chats are hotbeds of radicalisation. Stephen Sakara, who is the Deputy Director of the UN Counter-Terrorism Centre, has been throwing around some alarming statistics. He claims that about 1 in 5 counter-terrorism cases now involve young people, with gaming platforms playing a key role in every investigated case. Leif Villadsen, Acting Director of the UN Inter-Regional Crime and Justice Research Institute, has unveiled their grand plan to combat this supposed threat. They're calling it gaming intelligence. What it actually means is that they are monitoring your public data on gaming platforms, on social media, and on chats. They're watching you, they're listening to you, all in the name of preventing radicalisation at an early stage. Personally, I think this sounds quite ominous. They're also planning to use AI to develop advanced content moderation tools. In other words, they want to create algorithms to police your speech in gaming spaces. Look, it's Orwellian, it's invasive, and it's a direct threat to your freedom of expression. Now, Villadsen seems to realise that gamers might not take too kindly to this blatant invasion of their privacy. So he's cautioned against massive takedowns that could be seen as suspicious by gamers. Any attempt to monitor and censor our gaming spaces is going to be seen as suspicious, though, isn't it? Instead, they're proposing to work with the gaming community, private sector companies, and gamers themselves. They're trying to make you complicit in your own surveillance. But the UN's digital overreach doesn't stop at gaming. In a move that further expands its reach into the digital sphere, UNESCO has launched an initiative to train online influencers in fact-checking and combating misinformation. The organisation claims that influencers have become primary sources of news and cultural information worldwide, prompting them to conduct a survey on how these online personalities verify the information they present. They're trying to control influencers, basically, which I think, again, is quite concerning. The survey, titled Behind the Screens, involved 500 influencers from 45 countries and revealed that 63% of respondents lack rigorous fact-checking protocols. In response, UNESCO has developed a training course aimed at teaching influencers to report misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, that phrase again, hate speech, as well as collaborate with legacy media outlets to amplify fact-based information. And there we have it. Again, trying to stop people who might think freely for themselves from being able to do so. They want it to be channeled through those legacy media outlets again, don't they? This initiative has culminated in a 1-month course launched by UNESCO and the US-based Knight Center for Journalism in the Americas, currently involving 9,000 participants from 160 countries. The course aims to provide influencers with tools to address disinformation and hate speech while grounding them in global human rights standards. Well, who sets those standards? But anyway, this UNESCO initiative is part of a broader effort by the United Nations to combat misinformation and disinformation in the digital age. That's at least how they see it. In June 2024, the UN launched new global principles for information integrity, emphasising the need for immediate action to address the harms caused by false narratives, distortion, and lies online. It's interesting though, isn't it? Because I would argue that some of the officials are lying online. very regularly. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres outlined key recommendations aimed at making information spaces safer while upholding human rights such as freedom of speech. The principles lay out a clear path forward, firmly rooted in human rights, including the rights of freedom of expression and opinion. Guterres urged governments, tech companies, advertisers, and the public relations industry to take responsibility for the spread and monetization of harmful content. And there we have it. You've got the guy from the United Nations urging people in a roundabout way to demonetize people and platforms that do not fit their narrative. This global approach underscores the urgency of addressing information integrity across all platforms and mediums, apparently, from social media influencers to traditional news outlets. It's about control. They want to control everything. This is not about preventing terrorism, not about protecting young people or combating misinformation. It is about total control. It's about extending the reach of global institutions into every aspect of our lives, from our leisure time to the content we consume on social media. They want to watch everything. Think about that. Gaming has become one of the largest entertainment industries in the world. Social media influencers have become major sources of information and cultural trends. Now, these are spaces where people can express themselves freely, build communities, engage in debates. It's full of, very often, just very real people doing stuff in their own bedrooms, isn't it? And then they develop a following and it spirals from there. And you now have charities and international organisations who have clearly thought, how can we control those spaces? And this is what they're trying to do. It's a microcosm of free speech and free association in these particular areas, and now the UN wants to police it. We've seen this playbook before. They start with noble-sounding intentions, protecting children, preventing radicalisation, combating misinformation. But it always ends the same way. It's more surveillance, it's more censorship, it's less freedom. By the way, people might end up getting prosecuted for this stuff. So there's actual, they can criminalise you. All for this, potential for abuse that they keep going on about. Once these monitoring systems are in place, who's to say that they won't be used for other purposes? Today it's extremism and misinformation. Tomorrow it could be any opinion that doesn't align with the UN's agenda, and they want to censor it and take it down and silence you. Critics argue that these initiatives may be an attempt to prop up traditional media outlets, experiencing eroding trust among their audiences, also potentially extending the reach of global institutions into online space. And they are right to be concerned. We need to call this out for what it is, a blatant overreach by international organisations that have no business policing our online spaces. Groups like the United Nations and UNESCO and all of these different ones, they have a very good control over legacy media. We saw it during the pandemic. They have a very good control over it. And if they want to try to introduce that control to the things that you might make in your own bedroom or online content creators or gamers, for example, that will do two things. It will help prop up the legacy media, who they control, and it will also silence people as well. The UN was created to maintain international peace and security. It was not created to monitor your Minecraft server or dictate what influencers can say. If we allow this kind of surveillance and control in our digital spaces, where does this end? Will they come for our private messages next? But by the way, they probably already are, aren't they? Private messages, our phone calls. People in the press got done for that, didn't they? Not me personally, but people in the press got done for that. Hacking voicemails, hacking people's phones. Well, hang on a minute. This could almost be charity, international, globalist sponsored hacking, couldn't it? Our in-person conversations, are they already listening to those? Once freedom is given away, it's incredibly hard to get back. In fact, realistically, you don't get it back. So let's not just give it away. Now, let's keep our online spaces free, open and out of the UN's reach. This is Patrick Christie's for GB News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more originals content. I'll see you soon.